Welcome everyone to the third vlog of PowerWeb. We are here today with Gautham Ram, the Assistant Professor of Electric Mobility at the TU Delft Electrical Engineering Department. Gautham, welcome. And we're here to talk a little bit about your FlexiNet project. So can you start by telling us about the key challenges that the FlexiNet project handles and why they're important to be addressed in the world of today?
Thank you for inviting me to this discussion. So if you look at the carbon footprint of a typical Dutch home, you see that we have a lot of carbon emissions coming from the use of natural gas for the heating of the building. Also, typically people use internal combustion engine for the travel, so you need petrol or gasoline for that. And also the electricity use is coming from the typical energy mix that you have now, which is not yet 100% renewable. So the aim is to bring this carbon emission down to zero. And to do that, we have to move to electric mobility, to electric heating through heat pumps or through other means. So what we are focusing on here in the FlexiNet project is to see how we can make this transition and how we can do that considering the grid congestion that we have, right? So the grid congestion is preventing large-scale renewables to be integrated into the grid, but also a large amount of solar, electric vehicles and heat pumps also to be drawing power from the grid. So what you're investigating is how we use different types of energy storage, for example, using the electric vehicle as an energy storage, using a stationary battery energy storage, but also using hot water as a means of storing heat. How these different types of energy storage devices can provide flexibility so we can make this energy transition in Dutch homes given the grid congestion.
Perfect. All right, that's really interesting. So now that you have talked a little bit about some of the innovative approaches, can you elaborate in some of them, and also a little bit about how these kind of innovative approaches will evolve the relationship that EV has with solar energy systems of the future?
Yeah, so there are a few approaches that we are investigating within the FlexiNet project. The first thing is that we are looking at is what is the complementarity and competition between these different types of energy storage devices. So for example, if you have both an EV battery that can do energy storage and also do energy storage in a stationary battery, do we really need both of these energy systems? Are there situations where one is more beneficial than the other, right? And also in a typical Dutch home, about 60 to 80% of the energy is actually used in the form of heat, not in the form of electricity. So we're also looking at how thermal energy storage complements with electrical energy storage in the built environment. The second thing we're investigating is what happens if we have more and more EV charging infrastructure, especially, for example, bidirectional charging. How do you deal with the space constraint of installing these chargers? So what you see here is one of its kind underground electric vehicle charger. So the whole charging system for a bidirectional vehicle charger is actually placed underground. And part of the research is about how we can cool the electronics when they are placed underground to facilitate this. And the third thing that we are focusing on is to investigate how the aging of the batteries happen. Lithium-ion batteries continue to be one of the most expensive components in an electric vehicle, or if you buy a stationary battery. So we're trying to investigate how the different operating conditions, how we control the battery, the different battery chemistries, how does that influence the aging of these batteries so that we can, on one side, utilize the batteries for flexibility, but on the other side, try to ensure that these batteries can last as long as possible.
All right, that sounds really interesting. Can you share one of the results or achievements that you are proud of for this project and how you think that will evolve the neighborhood of energy systems?
Of course, this is a very nice demonstration. As I mentioned, it's first of its kind to have an underground EV charging system. We can also connect battery storage. There's also a battery which is installed underground. This was done with our industrial collaborator, Heliox Automotive. Another interesting outcome of our research is a trade-off between heat storage and electrical storage. So one of the things that you see here is that heat storage has the benefit that it's very cheap because you essentially use energy, you store heat in water, right? And water, of course, is cheaper than a lithium-ion battery in terms of energy storage potential. So on one side, you see the benefits of having a heat storage, but on the other hand, you also see the problem that you need a lot of heat storage in winter, but then the ability to generate, for example, using a solar thermal system, heat in the winter is also limited. At the same time, if you see this kind of variability in prices and supply and demand, we have learned that it is useful to use that electricity in a heat pump to create heat and store that in a heat buffer that can then supply the heating needs of the home, compared to the traditional approach of storing it in an electrical battery and then to take it from the battery outside. Another part of an outcome of the research is a trade-off between using a vehicle-to-grid EV battery as a storage and a stationary battery as a storage, right? And you see a lot of interesting trade-off. The first thing is that the vehicle-to-grid has a benefit that you don't have to invest and buy the battery. You buy a car for mobility, and then the energy storage potential comes for free. So from a purely economical perspective, this is a free battery, while the other one you have to invest maybe a few €1,000 to buy it. Also, what you see from a battery aging perspective, because the batteries of EVs are typically much larger, you're talking about 30 to 50 kilowatt hours of energy, the aging of these batteries for a given services is normally much lower because of a lower depth of discharge compared to stationary batteries, because those are typically of smaller sizes, talking about 3 to 5 kilowatt hours, so much smaller than this.
Yeah.
On the other hand, a stationary battery has an advantage that it's always connected, right? Sometimes the EV battery is gone to the workplace or somewhere else, so the availability of the EV battery strongly influences how much flexibility that it can provide, and also whether the EV is actually connected, right? I mean, not everybody has a home charging point, and not all cars which are on the street are actually connected to a plug. So that also a little bit influences the trade-off in these. So these are some of the insights from our research.
Oh, perfect. That's lovely to hear. Can you tell me a little bit about what sparked your interest towards working in this sort of project, or more like with EV? How did you get into this domain?
So if you see, transportation together accounts for about 12 to 15% of our total greenhouse gas footprint, right? So if you have to remove that, then moving to electrified means of mobility helps solve that. But at the same time, when you move to an electric vehicle, for example, you only remove the emissions from the tailpipe, right? So then it's important that even the electricity generated for the electric vehicle is also coming from a clean source, right? So that's why I've been investigating how you can use solar, locally generated solar, to charge electric vehicles. So you can remove what we call as a complete well-to-wheel emissions of the vehicles can be removed. But on the other hand, a key challenge with energy transition is variability in renewable energy production and a need for energy storage. And this is where an EV can be very interesting, because the EV battery itself can be a storage for the variability in generation. So to solve the problems of energy transition and the mobility transition, the electric vehicle can be a key game changer, kind of connecting and bringing both of these two worlds together. That's kind of what motivates me to work in this domain.
Perfect. That's really lovely to hear as well. Thank you for your time, Gautham, and good luck for the future of this project and your future pursuits as well.